Every 2 seconds, someone's identity gets stolen, and every year, Americans lose billions of dollars to various kinds of consumer fraud. As part of AARP's National Fraud Watch Network campaign, staff and volunteers will gather in Boston for a day of action. They will be reaching out to thousands of people to discuss fraud prevention. New Hampshire Attorney General Joe Foster and Dick Chevrevilles from AARP are here with more information. Good morning, gentlemen.
Good morning, Chris.
Well, could you describe some of the latest scams that you're warning of people about today?
Yeah, what we're getting into our offices are really two major areas. One, people who receive calls about being told that they owe taxes, that they're going to be arrested, and that unless they pay right away, somebody's going to come out to their homes and arrest them. Another thing we're hearing are people being told that their Microsoft computer isn't working. They're asking for access to that computer to fix that problem, and also asking for payment right away. And of course, that's not Microsoft reaching out to them.
And what are the key tactics that con artists are using to steal people's money right now?
Well, as I say, they'll try those scams. They'll try then to get people to give them their personal identifying information. They'll get them to turn over their credit card numbers and perhaps even give access to bank accounts. And people should never do that sort of thing. If they don't know the individual calling them, they should not pick up the phone. They don't recognize the number. If they do pick up the phone and they're suspicious, they should hang that phone up.
A lot of con artists will intimidate people. They'll create a sense of urgency, and it puts people at a real disadvantage. So people really need to be ready to say no and not to be intimidated, and to avoid those types of calls.
Now, are there specific things people do that make them more vulnerable to being scammed?
You know, I think, again, it's a matter of being cautious and being alert. As I say, if they are at home and they receive a phone call, they don't recognize that number, you know, don't pick it up. If they do pick it up, be cautious if you don't know the company that they're calling from, or if they haven't sought out that service. And of course, don't give your personal information over the phone. Don't give details. Never give payment to a company that you don't know. All those things can put you at risk.
Yeah. The other thing I think that's important, Chris, is the Fraud Watch Network itself. It becomes a real tool for people to utilize. It identifies scams that are out there. It identifies what the tactics are that con artists are using. But most importantly, I think it really provides a hotline so that if people get they get a call or they get some indication that there's some fraudulent behavior, they can call that hotline and they can get information and assistance from trained volunteers that are sponsored through that Fraud Watch hotline, just so that people know that fraud line can be accessed through aarp.org/Fraud Watch Network. It's a real powerful resource for our members and for the general public.
Yeah, I definitely encourage people to use that or call their state attorney general's office. We have a consumer hotline. We receive the calls, and you know, when you begin to get a pattern, it's easier to warn people, to get the message out, and also to try to address it if possible through an investigation.
Now, you talked about some of the free resources there. Is there anywhere else that our viewers can go to get even more information?
Yeah, well, again, I think the focal point is that Fraud Watch Network, but as the Attorney General said, you know, the Attorney General's office, the Office of Consumer Protection, I think in all of our states across the nation, and I think the exciting thing about the Fraud Watch Network, it's across the United States. It's available in all of our states, and I think that becomes a primary resource. But I think it's important to not accept, but to really reach out and to get some clarity on these things when they do happen, and to avoid getting sucked into something that you don't really want to be involved with.
You know, if somebody's been a victim of a scam, they're often embarrassed about it. We do get calls into our hotline frequently about the scams that take place. But I think what's really important is that people not be embarrassed, that they share that information, because they're really helping their fellow citizens to do it. It's very important that we gather that information.
I think that's an important point, Chris, that the Attorney General is making. There is a part of each one of us that suggests that it's not going to happen to us. And I think the real fact is it can happen to any one of us. And we're all susceptible to it. And I think if we really think about it, we think about those calls that we get from what quote-unquote computer companies or from what appears to be the IRS. We are all susceptible to this type of activity. So to be vigilant, I think, is the #1 tool, and also not to be isolated and to really utilize the resources that are out there, like the Consumer Protection Office of the Attorney General's office and the Fraud Watch Network.
All right, gentlemen, thank you so much. Some excellent information to help protect our viewers out there, and we appreciate you being with us today.
Thank you.
Thank you so
Glad
Chris.
to do it.
The preceding portion of Daytime was sponsored by